introverted noise.
Hurry up, Daddy.
Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
And we are live, and welcome back to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. Back once again with the man, the myth, the legend, the Saxy Prince. We rolling, just the two of us to here. You know, QB1 is busy, wide receiver 1's busy. It's the two of us. We got to hold it down. How you doing, Saxy Prince?
Hey, the backups. You know, we live that Matt Moore life, right? You know, we understand that we're backups and we stay in our lane because we know that's how you continue to get paid in this league and never ever take a starting job. That's what you have to do. That's how you in this league forever.
You gotta live that Chase Daniels life. You know, you gotta be ready to hold a clipboard when you are called upon, and that is what we are here to do this evening. And we're gonna hop right to it. We're gonna get to it because the most important news that could possibly happen, not the Vikings win, not the momentum, not the hot streak, not Danielle Hunter. I mean, the Vikings signed Ameer Abdullah. Saxy Prince? Ameer Abdullah.
Yeah, man. Like,
how excited are you?
Well, here's the thing. It's like, I remember going into the 2015 draft, and like, again, just being in Minnesota, being a Gopher alum, like, obviously I saw Ameer Abdullah play. So I definitely wanted him in that draft. You know, everything that happened with Adrian Peterson, like, I was like really ready to like, okay, everything's happened. Let's just move on. Let me just find a new running back to kind of cling on to. And I saw Ameer Abdullah as one of those guys that, you know, in those mid rounds, like, yo, the Vikings should take a flyer on him. You know, I believe that was the season that they ended up drafting. I want to say, was that the season they drafted Jerick McKinnon in the third round? They might have, or it might have been. It was 2014 they drafted Jerick McKinnon. But anyways, yeah, I was happy. I was excited about him as a prospect, and I thought he was going to be one of the Lions, you know, like, guys of the future. But, you know, obviously he had the fumble issues. When you look at him, just as far as his spider chart and stuff, like his athletics, they are quite good. So the issue is just like, you know, what is he going to be in the future? Is he just going to be a guy who is just a kick returner, a third running back, or, you know, could he be more? Could he be that RB2 or 3 rotational guy, whatever the case is? So yeah, I'm excited about the pickup.
Yeah, it's crazy. Ameer Abdullah is one of those guys that, like, just shows how little you really know when you go into like the draft and how guys are going to translate. Because, you know, we talked to JR about it. His film was good. People in the film community liked him. His metrics were amazing. 98th percentile spark athlete. Burst off the charts. Speed, yeah, just all right. Nothing crazy with the speed, but, you know, speed is kind of overrated as it comes to running backs. Agility, off the charts. Strength, catch the ball coming out of college. Ridiculous yards per carry. Carried a big workload in college. Like, everything you would think you'd want when you're projecting a running back from, you know, the college game to the pros. He had it, and then he just didn't do anything when he got to the NFL, which was just, you know, it's disappointing. But he's only 25. Maybe leaving the dumpster fire that is the Detroit Lions. Shout out to my man Adam. Hope you're listening tonight. Sorry we had to do that to your boys. Maybe that can, you know, breathe life into his career. You know, make him that rotational, like you said, third running back, maybe kickoff guy, whatever, wherever they can get him in. I'm excited, you know, just because I did like him as a prospect, and he's finally on my team. I mean, he probably murdered a couple of my dynasty rosters, but it is what it is. But, you know, I kind of talked about it a little bit there, Saxy Prince. We got to talk about this game. Vikings, Lions. I mean, I think we all picked the Vikings to win this game. But how they won the game, what are your thoughts on it? What were your big takeaways? Offensive performance, defensive performance. We got to talk about it because he's making all that money. What are your thoughts on how Kirk Cousins played? Obviously, we're going to talk about Danielle Hunter. Break it down for me. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought, you know, I think the Vikings jumped off to, you know, a really good start. You know, they took their first drive. scored, which is exactly what you want to see him do. I haven't seen the offense like really out of the gates really struggle, which has been really, really nice. What I've seen so far is like, they have this hot couple of starts, a few drives are going really, really well, and then just kind of sputter towards, kind of that middle and towards the end of the game. I thought the offense, was looking good. You got Treadwell into the mix. You got BB, who was just elevated that for that game into the mix with Diggs out. So, and obviously you weren't able to get Adam Thielen going the way that you want to, but they were still able to get him the ball in unique ways. Obviously they had a couple of handoffs that they had to him. So, obviously, when Diggs is out, Thielen really takes on that, not only his outside role, but takes on that gadget role as well, too. So, as far as the offense, I think, if we can get some of that situational football stuff figured out, the 2-minute drill, the, finishing at the ends of halves, really being more aggressive, in those certain situations where, you might be up by like 6 points, but, you need to really put the game away. I think that's where the offense still needs to evolve. And I unfortunately don't think that's going to be something that happens this season. I think it's an off-season type thing. Defense takeaway. I think that this defense is getting back to what they are. I believe from Football Machine, I think Reef had said they were playing a lot of cover 1 and cover 3 type stuff, and now moving to more cover 2. I think that's simplifying the defense a lot more so where, I think the defense is evolving, but, evolving maybe not as fast as Zimmer thought they were going to evolve when he first started the season. You see as the Vikings are still one of the most disruptive teams on third down, on third downs and whatnot. They are just a team that, still one of the best in the league at stopping teams on third down. So you can see how this defense is, getting back to what we perceive the Vikings defense to be, which is actually phenomenal, because I think that, the offense still has a little bit to go, but having this defense allows them to, kind of grow slowly more together. So, this was the outcome that I think we all expected. I didn't think the Lions were going to beat us. I thought that they, because of some of their playmakers, Kenny Golladay, you have Kerryon Johnson, you have Marvin Jones Jr. I mean, like, they have weapons to present problems for the Vikings. Obviously, with Anthony Barr out, you have Theo Riddick, who he's actually even said, Theo Riddick is one of the toughest guys to guard because of his speed and because of, kind of his elusiveness and what he's able to do after the catch. So, I think the Vikings did a really good job taking care of business. Though, you still are kind of waiting for that really complete game that they can put together towards the end of the season.
Yeah, man, and you brought up a lot of really good great points there. And I think one of the things that I think is kind of funny about football is if you'd said before the season started, before the first game was played, that we hit the midpoint of the season and the Vikings defense is a top 10 unit, the offense is still kind of figuring things out, most people would be okay with that. Most people would come to expect that. And that's basically where we are right now. If you go look at DVOA, Vikings defense, is ranked 9th. The offense, not as good as we'd like to see. They're ranked 19th right now, which is, that's a conversation we can have at a later time. But it's what we kind of would have expected from the Vikings. And it does make it just funny to look back. And, maybe Miles has it right, kind of unplugging from, social media and the rest during games. And maybe all of us need to, take a step back, because all of the overreaction, all of the craziness earlier in the season with, Zim lost his way and all of those other takes, they just seem kind of funny now, because the Vikings are obviously kind of trending in the way that we want them to go. We know defense in and of itself is a more volatile thing. And it really does feel now like we were really overreacting as a fan base to just, some of the random quirky stuff that does happen defensively in football, where you have to get 11 guys in perfect sync on every play, or you could give up a big play, which is what we were doing quite a bit of very early in the season. With us now getting in, we mollywop the Lions, and it was a weird game, and it's another game. And I put it out on Twitter afterwards where The Vikings are now 4-0 when Kirk Cousins throws for less than 250 yards, which, for the volume stats enthusiast is a very strange thing for people to really take in. But what are your thoughts on this one? Because this is another game where the passing game seemed a little up and down. Still, I mean, we're lacking in explosive plays. That's going to be, I think, a recurring theme for this entire season. But the passing game didn't really seem to, be humming or to strike fear in defenses the way that it had. Obviously, Stephon Diggs being out, that is a big factor. But what are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins' performance specifically and how he played in this game?
I think it's really hard to, still truly evaluate where Kirk Cousins is. I haven't really seen him, probably outside of the Packer game. I think he did phenomenal in the Packer game. But that was more so because I think we were down by so much that John DeFilippo had no choice but to let him, loosen up the reins and really let him go. But I think the term that I'm still having to use with Kirk Cousins is inconsistent. There are some plays where he makes the perfect read, makes the perfect throw, and for one reason or another, the wide receiver drops it, or it just happens to be like a phenomenal play. But then you see Kirk make awful decisions. You'll see him throw it into an area where no wide receiver is going to. You see him, you saw that interception, which, as I was reviewing it, there could be an argument that wasn't completely Kirk's fault, but I still, my initial thoughts were it's still a bad decision by Kirk. You see those, like the Stephon Diggs pick six, you see those kinds of plays that he makes, and you still wonder, like, it's either you're getting really, really great Kirk Cousins or you're getting really poor Kirk Cousins. Like, it doesn't really seem like there's really much of in between. And obviously, you can't expect him to always be playing at his ceiling, but I think you want to elevate a little bit what he does at times where he's playing at his floor, and get a little bit more consistency out of that. So, I mean, I guess to evaluate his play at this point is, I still, if this is the Kirk Cousins we paid $84 million for, I don't think that he's lived up to his contract thus far. However, I still think that doesn't mean he's not playing well. I think he can play better, and I think he can play closer to what his contract, kind of commands and what the expectation is of contract. But I really haven't seen him really truly elevate the talent around him, really truly elevate the players around him. Granted, he has Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, so that's really difficult. But guys like Treadwell, guys like Zylstra and BB, and those guys who are really really trying to make a name for themselves on this team and make a mainstay on this team. Those are the kinds of guys that Kirk Cousins, I think, needs to kind of bring up to, a higher level of play. You've seen guys like, it's hard to compare it to these two. You see guys like Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers and obviously Brady, Breeze, Rivers, all those guys in the league. They're always, and I can't forget Wilson, always bringing up, sometimes some no-name wide receivers and making them look a lot better than they are. I think it's really easy to make a Diggs and Thielen look good because they are great. He doesn't need to do anything to make them appear that way. But, guys like Treadwell, guys like, Aldrick Robinson, Chad Beebe this week, and, Brandon Zylstra, some of these other guys who, are your third, fourth, fifth wide receiver, you really want to see them do really well. Where's his relationship with Kyle Rudolph? Kyle Rudolph should be playing better because of Kirk. So, I mean, I would have to say that, I'm not down on Kirk Cousins at this point, but I do need to see significantly more for me to be comfortable once we get into December and January, where Kirk is going to. The thing about the playoffs is I think we all know it's majority situational football. Teams have learned to save a lot of the stuff that they kind of can force, such as situational football, like certain blitz packages or things that are going to force guys to be more creative in the playoffs, whereas during the season you can be kind of robotic, go through the motions, get through the game, all that stuff. Whereas in the playoffs, you really need to become more creative. You need to be able to adapt a lot more, be flexible, because you're going to be in a lot more, unique and advanced situations that you probably didn't see throughout the season. So, and that's one area that I haven't seen Kirk really take that step where he's, showing, when things break down, when he has to make a play, not be a hero per se, but, really just not have his technical stuff be on its P's and Q's every single time. You've seen him become a little bit flustered in the pocket. So, go ahead.
So you touched on a good point. You touched on something that I think that has been said many times about Kirk Cousins. He's best when he's on rhythm. If he can come back, back foot hits, ball comes out, clear reads, he'll play at a very high level. And I know that you've made, an analogy kind of bringing it into, music and jazz and kind of, the way different musicians are wired. Like some musicians are wired and are super technically proficient, locked in, and others can just kind of feel it and riff. And I don't really see Kirk Cousins as being the guy who's going to go out there and give you a lot of riffs. He's going to give you that steady, that steady rhythm. But if things go off the rails a little bit, that's not him. That's not his game. And so I wonder if some of these things that we are attributing to Kirk Cousins or wondering about Kirk Cousins, are they really should we be having more of a conversation about John DeFilippo than we are about Kirk Cousins? Because you mentioned it, the scripted plays tend to look really good. But then after the scripted plays run out, things have been a bit uneven as we get through the season. And I think I won't say we all, but I think many of the people who evaluate Kirk Cousins know that, if the offense is well designed around him and he has good players around him, Kirk Cousins will do what you need him to do. Yes, he might have a couple of those plays in a game where he puts the ball on the ground or makes that, what is he doing type play. But for the most part, if he's in a well-designed offense with good players around him, he'll make the right decision for you. So at what point do we start to question what's going on with John DeFilippo? And is your expectation maybe that during this bye week, they're going to do some self-scouting and maybe things will become a little bit, better from a play calling perspective or even a play design perspective as we come out of the bye?
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely looking at, kind of the three people who I would kind of blame why the offense isn't moving. Obviously, we've talked enough about Kirk Cousins, but yes, John DeFilippo. And then the other one is Mike Zimmer. I would look at those three as three collective people who are kind of your brain trust as far as how is this offense going to continue to grow and evolve. And the issue that I'm finding is I think that DeFilippo is finding it very challenging to be more creative, to find other areas that he can exploit, how to utilize the talent that he has. And I think at times when he finally gets to that point in games, that's the point where Zimmer is like, you know what, I need us to back away. I need us to be a little bit more conservative. I need us to, we have the lead, but I don't want anything bad to happen. I think Zimmer wants so badly to avoid mistakes and stuff where he's really handcuffing DeFilippo, who it takes him a second. We're talking about jazz. It takes a few players to, get warmed up. You really get those ideas starting to flow and stuff. And I think Kirk and DeFilippo are both that same way. They really need to get warmed up into that solo. And then I think finally when they get to that point, Zimmer is like, you know what, we need to hold back a little bit more. So I think this is a thing where Zimmer, John DeFilippo, and Cousins need to all just sit down and just be like, hey, we need to look at how we are executing this offense on a consistent basis and find more unique ways to, make it like a happy medium. If Zimmer wants to be conservative at certain points, how can we have somewhat of, conservative play calling that still that can still yield the results of, certain aggressive. Maybe that means maybe it means more up-tempo offense, safe, easy throws, which helps with Zimmer's wanting to be conservative, but, maybe more unique screen games. Obviously you can look to the Patriots, who we're going to be playing in a couple of weeks, a phenomenal screen team. The way that Bill Belichick's able to design all those and whatnot. Maybe those are ways that you can continue to grow the offense, but still have a happy medium with it all. So yeah, I do not put it all on Kirk. I put it on, the offensive coordinator, and I also put it on the head coach as well too.
I am amazed that you didn't put it on like Dalvin Cook or something for missing time because he came back and the man was looking good after, and I will go out there and say I was one of those people on Twitter who was like, I don't know if Dalvin should be playing. Let him rest through the bye, let that hamstring get better. And then he came out there and hit the highest top speed in the NFL on that run. He did get caught from behind, but the conditioning probably isn't all there. But we've made it this far into the podcast, and you have not really talked about a running back yet. What are your thoughts on Dalvin Cook and what he adds to the Minnesota Vikings offense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I'm willing to, kind of swallow my take. I've mentioned it off air. I was one of those people who were just like, you know what, it's Dalvin Cook. I even went as far as said like put him on IR because I just didn't know how fast that hammy was going to heal. It just felt like they kept putting him out on practice and putting him on games and putting him on pitch count, and then obviously you would have another setback. So I'm like, let's stop doing this and let him heal and let him come back. But obviously, they see him every single day. They know, what not healthy Dalvin Cook looks like and healthy Dalvin Cook looks like. And he looked fairly healthy on that game. I've been saying it for a while, but, I just think without Diggs and Thielen, this Vikings offense would struggle mightily because they just don't have a reliable number 3 weapon, whether that be in the passing game or just something that they can just like generate some kind of like just the unique yards out of, from line of scrimmage some way. You had years ago, you had Cordero Patterson, but you don't really have a guy that you can just put the ball in his hands and he's just going to make something miraculous happen. And I think that guy is Dalvin Cook. I think you saw that with that, that huge, 70-yard run. He has the ability to make the plays that are kind of home run type plays. And, as much as we love Latavius Murray and how consistent he's been and, Rock Thomas and Mike Boone, those guys really don't have very much of that home run hitting type playmaking ability. Dalvin Cook presents that, that third option that can, probably help open things up a little bit more so for Diggs and Thielen. And, I'm really hoping that, he can be more consistent for this, remainder of the season because I think the Vikings are need him or just someone like him that's going to add another dimension to the offense.
All right, so we made it this far, and I'm gonna ask you the question. It's a dangerous question, but I'm gonna ask you the question anyway. It's one of those things that through the game it seemed fairly self-evident. It's a take that should not be seen as a slight, an attack, or anything like that on anyone. But what are your thoughts on how the absence of Stephon Diggs affected Adam Thielen's ability to do what many have come to expect him to do every week, which is, ball out in the slot, get a ton of catches, ton of yards. Maybe I'm making too big of an inference from one data point, but volume game of the season, something that can be attributed to, defensive scores, et cetera. Kirk Cousins had a fairly low, yards per attempt. Passing game was not particularly explosive. That could change if Aldrick Robinson, who was playing in place of Stephon Diggs, catches that pass. What are your thoughts, generally speaking? Passing game without Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen's performance in particular without Stephon Diggs on the field?
Yeah, it's it becomes a very touchy subject. I know. I'm with Vikings fans. I love Adam Thielen. I think he's phenomenal for this team. I think he adds so much. I think he
wrote a hit piece on Adam Thielen. So says Reddit.
Yeah, so says Reddit. But yeah, I don't think that we need to skirt around the fact that Adam Thielen missed Stephon Diggs in that game. I think obviously defenses. What have they been doing from us? They've been putting their number one corner on Stephon Diggs, and then they've also been rolling coverage over there because they're so afraid of getting beat deep or giving him enough space to do what Stephon Diggs does in the open field. And not to say Adam Thielen doesn't create explosive plays or doesn't make phenomenal catches, because he does, but he does that from the slot. He does that against a lot of guys, nickel corner. He does that against guys, number 2 corner, which obviously Adam Thielen is better than most teams' number 2 corner. Adam Thielen is probably better than most teams' number 1 corner. But at the end of the day, the player that teams are scheming against on the outside is still Stephon Diggs. And when you don't have that, you don't have the ability to put him in the slot as often as you need to because you need him to play on the outside. You don't have the ability to kind of hide him in your scheme and then have him make this crazy explosive play. And I think you would probably see a similar game from him if Stephon Diggs has to miss another game. Conversely, I don't know if that would be the opposite if Stephon Diggs was there and Adam Thielen was injured, because at the end of the day, Stephon Diggs is still seeing that double coverage. He's still seeing them on corners. He's still able to get open. Obviously his production this season hasn't been as high as probably we expect it to be. But at the same time is the Vikings are playing the numbers game. They know if they can keep pulling coverage away from Adam Thielen and some of our other playmakers by using Stephon Diggs, we can keep moving the ball down the field, and Adam Thielen is perfect for that. Not to say he can't play outside that role, but I think he is a little bit more limited than Stephon Diggs would be in that. That's not to say he won't ever have a 100-yard game for the rest of the season, but I do think that he and Stephon Diggs on the field together both help each other out.
Okay, and yeah, and I'm try to put to dampen the language you're using there, because when you say things like limited and things like that is where people I think probably come for you, in that Adam Thielen is a phenomenal route runner. When you look at him, even last season, he was considered by Pro Football Focus, Bleacher Report, and others to be a top 10 wide receiver. The way he's playing right now, he's in the conversation for playing as his play season to date has him in the conversation as one of the best 1, 2, or 3 wide receivers in all of the NFL. And so I guess I can understand when people are saying, he's limited in this. He's a great route runner, but there is a difference. One could argue that there's a difference in talent between, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, while also saying that Adam Thielen is playing at a far more productive level than Stephon Diggs is season to date. What I noticed, and I would have to go back and watch again to figure out exactly when the play took place, but it was a third down and Adam Thielen was in the slot, and the Lions just knew that's where the ball was going to go. So they came out in a look that showed man coverage because they knew Kirk Cousins would go to Adam Thielen on man. And then they basically just put 3 guys on Adam Thielen. So more so than looking at it as a knock on Adam Thielen's ability to get open, most receivers aren't getting open when they have 3 guys on them. I looked at it more as teams are just able to put all their attention on Adam Thielen when Stephon Diggs isn't there, which makes his job far more difficult than if Stephon Diggs was on the field. And what I would have hoped, and this is a take that I'm stealing from Flip, what I'd hope in a situation like that is either Kirk Cousins, recognizes that, there are 3 guys on Adam Thielen. So in that particular case, Kyle Rudolph is wide open going up the seam, or that some of our other guys would have been able to exploit those things to get ourselves big plays. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. We did have a big drop, but going forward, and again, we'll knock on something that, none of our guys missed time, but going forward, the hope is that, if anyone does, we can do a better job either at the quarterback position or with Flip in designing things to move guys around and take advantage of some matchups to still be able to have a productive offense if one of our main guys is down.
And to that point, Jason, I'm not sure if you're talking about the same play that I'm thinking of, but on that interception play actually that Kirk Cousins threw to Adam Thielen, I forget what the coverage was, but I believe the safety kind of knew that the ball was going to Adam Thielen, but his responsibility was Laquan Treadwell. On that play, Treadwell gets quite open, but Kirk Cousins obviously throws the ball to Adam Thielen because he trusts him a little bit more so. But the safety knowing that really gives him.
Are you talking about the Darius Slay interception?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And Slay gives him, Treadwell pretty soft coverage because he knows he's going to peel off and go to Adam Thielen. Now, it's those kinds of plays where, Kirk wants to go to Thielen, and I know that we're a team, throw to our best players and stuff. But that's one of those plays where it's kind of like you're saying is defense. If we're talking about situational football, and we know we're in the playoffs and stuff, teams are just going to continue to bait us into that kind of stuff. Bill Belichick, obviously, you've read stuff about him and how he prepares for games and stuff. These are the kinds of things. And in a few weeks when we play the Patriots, like they're going to start baiting us into those kinds of things. Like Bill Belichick's going to know the ball's going to go to Adam Thielen. He's going to know it's going to go to Stephon Diggs. So he's going to show a certain coverage that's going to make it seem as if one of those guys are going to get open or get some kind of one-on-one. But he's going to roll coverage over to the both of them, and it's going to be up to Kirk and co to, is he going to go to Treadwell? Is he going to find Aldrick Robinson? Is Dalvin Cook going to be more involved in stuff? Because Bill Belichick will be ready for that kind of stuff. And those are kind of situational type things where, can this offense really find a way to, even if Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are our weapons, utilize our weapons to kind of be decoys at times so that we can consistently still move the ball down the field if it's not in the hands of one of these two guys.
And I like what you just said there, and it's a shout out to our man. I'm going to give it to Mr. Luke Braun because he did write an awesome article for Purple PTSD, and that's one of the things that he kind of talked about using some of the math to speak to what you're talking about right there. Is that as the season goes along, the hope is that the ball does start to get spread around to more of our playmakers, that we're not as predictable in terms of what we're going to do and how we're going to run things. And to that end, he predicts that we'll see some regression, positive regression from our man Stephon Diggs as the season rolls along. But, that could also lead to positive regression for the offense overall as we become a more kind of diversified passing attack, which could mean good things for Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph, as the season rolls along. So I like that. Got to keep things moving here because, we started this thing saying, we're not going to make this too long. It's just the two of us. So we got to run through some stuff here pretty quick as we wrap this up. Not much more to say about the Detroit game. I think that actually, a little bit more to say. It was a okay performance from the offense, but Saxy Prince, we touched on it a little bit. I need you to give me a little bit more on your thoughts on this defensive effort from the Minnesota Vikings, because, we got records being set. We got the defensive player of the year. What are your thoughts on everything that you saw from Mike Zimmer scheming and the way the players played, people stepping up? That performance from the defense was about as good as it can get. What are your thoughts? What were your takeaways after watching it a couple times? Talk to me, man.
Yeah, I don't think I can truly start a conversation about the defensive effort without mentioning, man, this team really, and it's weird to say, I think this team really, really missed Everson Griffin. I think that his presence, obviously, Stephen Wedler, he has been playing fantastic. Linval Joseph, Richardson, all of them across the defensive line have been playing fantastic. But the sheer elevation that he brings to this defensive line that allows guys like Danielle Hunter, guys, again, Richardson and Linval Joseph to continue to eat because he plays so aggressively, because he plays so passionately, really elevates this team in a defensive line and makes it one of the best defensive line in the league. You just can't stop talking about them because I really think, I think a few years ago, I think our secondary was probably one of the, mainstays and why we were, doing so well in coverage and stuff. Obviously, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes has taken steps forth. But at times I have felt like the secondary hasn't played up to the same level for obvious reasons. They have they have younger guys there. Mike Hughes is out for the season and stuff. So I think the defensive line has stepped up in ways that, they are really making it very challenging for even good offensive lines to defend against. And I think with the first couple of weeks or the weeks that Everson Griffin was out, we were still playing well, but it's just like he just elevated, he just brought the passion back to this defensive line that I think just brought their play from what it was as a 10 now to 11. And I think you can't say enough about Danielle Hunter. I think he's an absolute steal in this past offseason, locking down that contract. He's playing at such a high level. If you really break down the tape, even when he's not sacking the quarterback, you're really getting to see how like unbelievably miserable right tackles are having to go against this guy. And I think the cool thing about Danielle Hunter is he hasn't really shown an affinity to wanting to play on the left or the right side, which I think allows a lot of flexibility. When a guy like Everson Griffin is gone, if a guy like Stephen Weatherly or Tayshaun Bauer or some of these other guys who are just like, they play better on the right side, they play better on the left side. Having a guy like Danielle Hunter who can play both sides pretty well without really showing any kind of, inconsistencies in his play, really just adds some flexibility to the team. I still think that the linebacker core is a little bit of a question mark. I am still a little bit worried. I do miss Anthony Barr, and I hope that he comes back soon, because I do think there's some matchup stuff that is going to start getting exploited here in the next couple of weeks. But there's not enough good things that I can say. Obviously Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes he has been playing well. I don't think anybody can deny that he's, he has his hiccups. He has had his hiccups, but I mean, if you pretty much look at the last 3 games, I think he's been playing quite well. So having a 10-sack game, having, the amount of pressure Matthew Stafford was under, I contributed to Andre Patterson. I contributed to Mike Zimmer and his scheme, and I think they will only continue to get better as the season goes on.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move this on. You said as the season goes on, that'll be our segue for the rest of the show, and we're going to try to get through it pretty quick because, I think we're probably already over the time we set for ourselves here. So, mid-season report card, Saxy Prince, offense, what you giving them?
Offense, I'm probably going to give him like a B-. I think, and this is me, obviously, I'm admitting to being a little bit hard on the defensive line here, or not the defensive line, but the offense, just because, I think with the playmakers that you have, I think that they could be playing at a much, much higher level than they are at. But, like we've kind of mentioned, DeFilippo, could be a better play caller, as well as just offensive mind, as well as Kirk Cousins could be playing better. I think without having, Dalvin Cook in the mix there, you really haven't found like another weapon to complement Dalvin or Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. So I don't feel like I could give them anything more than a B-. We haven't really, besides the Packer game, really shown an offensive effort that was like, the offense really took control of this game. So, I'm going to go with a B-.
Okay, that feels fair. And, to put a little context on that, from Pro Football Focus right now, they have the offense at a 77.5, so just a little bit above average. So, B-, C+, that feels like a fair range. For just looking at raw numbers, if you go take a look at the yards were 12th, points for 13th, so kind of middle of the road there. DVOA obviously puts us down at 19th, which a little bit nerve-wracking. So I feel like, you're not being too harsh. B- feels like a fair grade there. What about the defense? Where do you have them at this point? Understanding that, we had a bit of a rocky road to get to where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think, to start, I probably would have given a much lower grade. I'm trying to obviously adjust for expectation. And my expectation for this defense is to still remain a top 5 type defense. I think they've moved closer to, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've moved closer to that defense that I think that they are. So, I'll probably give him a B or a B-, kind of sitting in that as well too, only because they started the season.
Whoa! You giving the offense and the defense B-?
Yeah,
I feel like you're grading on a curve for one of the two of them. They can't be the same.
Well, I mean, I gave them both. I'm halfway between a B and a B-, because I think
you can't give them a B+. I mean, it's not an A performance yet, but a B-.
I mean,
that means the offense got to go down to a C then. I mean, they can't be the same.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, we made Josh Allen look like, a Pro Bowl type quarterback in that game, and
I mean, come on, people have bad, but come on,
they do, but like at the same time, if we are going to look at this team as a playoff and a Super Bowl contending team, I think a team that looks off I think is a tad bit different than a team that just doesn't show up. And I think every single year we have seen the defense not show up versus like, oh, the defense is not having the greatest game. And that's what concerns me about when we get to the playoffs is like, is this, it's like eliminated it's the difference between it's just slightly below average and that was just awful. And I think, when you look at how, again, consistently every single year, there's been a game where it's just been absolute awful performance by the Vikings defense. And even if they're out coached or out schemed or whatever the case is, you would still kind of hope that they can still keep things pretty close, and I just worry about their ability to consistently do that year in and year out without having a game that's just like, well, like what happened? And I feel like we ask that question at least once a year, and I don't feel confident giving them a higher grade than probably a B. Without them, B. I'm gonna give it a B. But
this is waiting dangerously close to Mike Zimmer hot seat territory. But we're gonna keep this thing moving because you're locked into your B minus somehow the same range as the offense, which whatever, it's your grade. So let's keep this thing rolling along. First one feels like it's a slam dunk. We really shouldn't even have to have a conversation. But who is the mid-season offensive MVP for our Minnesota Vikings?
I don't think this is going to be much of an argument here. I think this guy has played phenomenal. I think he's, probably top 3 in it, top 3 or 4 in his position right now. But Adam Thielen, I think he's played lights out, all except for last game, but we obviously know what happened last game. And yeah, I think he's played really well. And I think he's elevated this offense to being more of a contender than it kind of has been, even despite the inconsistencies. So I would go with Adam Thielen.
You got to just go throw them shots. You couldn't just say Adam Thielen and be like, yeah, he's been really good, except for that last game. I mean, you are really and truly the son of immigrants.
Stephon Diggs had a pretty poor game. So
you are the son of immigrants, and I can't even be mad at you because I understand, nature. I understand. I understand where that comes from. It's not your fault. It's it's how you were raised.
It's so true, man.
And on defense, who you got? Mid-season MVP for the defense.
Oh, I mean, I think this goes with this is probably the easiest. I mean, Danielle Hunter. He is playing at such a high level. He is showing why his contract is almost a joke right now because if he bet on himself, he would have made historical numbers as far as being a top defensive end. So Danielle Hunter has played at such a high level, and I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on and throughout his career.
All right. No arguments for me there. All right, so we've gone over a lot here. Vikings are sitting in a pretty good spot as we we went into this very much needed bye. Vikings sitting at 5-3-1. Give me your prediction for how they do over the second half of their season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have the Bear game that was flexed into prime time. That's going to be at Soldier Field. Obviously historically we haven't played really well over the last 10 years at Soldier Field. It's just obviously there's a lot of skeptics out there. There's some kind of curse with Soldier Field, but I think more importantly, this game, the reason why it's important is because it was moved to prime time, and the Vikings need to show that they can perform better in prime time. They had a Sunday night game and they're going to have another Sunday night game. And then after that, they have another Sunday night game. That's 3 out of 4 Sunday night games, that the Vikings need to perform in. The last Sunday night game, they did not perform well in. So I think with this game and then obviously the Packer game, the Patriots and the Seahawks, this is going to be kind of a little mini gauntlet that you have going here. We were worried about the gauntlet in the beginning of the season, but I think this is one that you have to really worry about because you have 2 back-to-back division games. I mean, you took care of business against Detroit, but now you have Chicago and you have the Packers. I think if you don't win one out of the 2 of these, more specifically probably against the Packers, it's really going to make it difficult when it comes to playoff seedings and stuff. I still think this team's a playoff team, but where they will be ranked, can they latch on to that 3rd or 4th seed. I think they'll probably not get the 1st or 2nd, but you can still get home field advantage.
I feel like you're filibustering me right now, bro. I mean, give me some numbers here. What we gonna do?
Yeah, I see us winning against Chicago, winning against the Packers, losing against the Patriots, probably losing against the Seahawks, and then winning out for the rest of the season. So that leaves us at 6-2 for the rest of the season. If my math is correct, my math's probably off right there. But
no, that feels
5-2.
Yeah, 5-2. 5-2 the rest of the way.
Yeah, 5-2 the rest of the way.
5-2 the rest of the way. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that would put us right where again, we should have bet the under at the beginning of the season, but okay. Okay. All right. 5-2 the rest of the way. That should get us into the playoffs. Probably won't get us a bye, but it'll get us into the playoffs. And then we just need Kirk Cousins to get hot, and we can get that trophy. That's it. That's all. I got nothing else to ask you today. You got anything you're cooking up? Anything that we should be on the lookout for? Anything that'll be dropping in the not too distant future here for us?
It'll probably be in this more distant future, but I have been working on more of a longer Danielle Hunter piece. Hoping to get that out sooner rather than later, but hashtag motivation.
Let's get it. All right. Well, Sexy Prince, thanks for coming in, holding it down, being the analyst 1, 2, and 3 on the Climbing the Pocket podcast. And listeners, thanks for hanging with us. If you have any angry messages to send after listening to this podcast, as always, please direct those to @SaxyPrince on Twitter.com. My name is Jason Brown. Thank you for listening. This has been the Climbing the Pocket podcast. And we will talk to you soon. Have a good one.